And it's another episode of the Church Solutions podcast. I forgot to look. Is it 318? I think it's 318. Am I right,
I
Steve?
think you said 317 last time.
Yeah, good. All right, good. Well, I'm Phil Thompson,
And I'm Steve Lacy.
and we come to you every week with this podcast brought to you by mychurchdaily.com. My Church Daily is a great little tool that you can use for your church and ministry to be on Alexa devices. You can have your flash briefing every day on Alexa devices. Millions of people have Alexa devices, the Echo, what do they call them? What's the generic term, Steve? Echo devices, Amazon Echo, is that what they call them? The speakers.
Yes, they are Amazon Echoes. There's Echo Show and Echo Dot and other
Yeah.
things like that.
There are
So
lots of things, and they're basically, you probably have heard of Alexa by now. So go to My Church Daily and check it out. We got a free trial, and we think it's a great tool to reach people and connect with your people in your church every day if you choose. And it's really simple to do. Short audio files are very easy to upload. And of course, we will help you because My Church Daily is actually part of what we do here at JSL Solutions. So, Steve, happy belated birthday. Your birthday was yesterday.
yes, thank you. And you gave me a great birthday present.
Well,
The video interviews, that was really
oh,
good.
yeah, well, good. I'm glad you like that. That's made up of that was actually several months worth of me nagging people to get their video in, and a lot of people did it, and I thought they said some really nice things. And if people want to actually see or hear what people said about Steve, because it's this is our 20th anniversary for JSL Solutions, and you can go to streamingchurch.tv and look under the menu under info. We have our video podcast and things like that, as well as audio. And that video, which is about 16 minutes long, is on there right now. It's also on our YouTube channel. So
I did not know that.
people can look it up. Yeah, you can look it up, and you can see all the wonderful things that people said about Steve, and they were all true, by the way. So all right. So
what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing today? Well, so we've hinted about this. We've done this in the past. Tony Morgan, his website's TonyMorganLive.com, and he's also got a ministry called the Unstuck Church. And he does a report every quarter for people that sign up for this for him. And so we're going to look at the Unstuck Church report that he produced a couple of weeks ago that basically go through the past year. And there's over 500 churches that participate in this with him. And did I say, was it 500 or more than 500? 194 churches, 194. Stop mocking me because I get my numbers wrong. The average attendance was over 500.
Yes.
Which is
that was surprising.
Well, I think Tony works with larger churches, so I think that's the reason. But the numbers here are very interesting. And if you're involved in leadership in your church or even involved as a key volunteer, some of these numbers are interesting, and you might want to just kind of take a look at them. We'll talk a little bit about them.
Yeah. Some of them we're going to try to highlight some of those that were surprising. And some of those were some you would expect, like in-person average weekly attendance for these almost 200 churches has gone up or down, do you think, over the past year?
Well, I would guess because of COVID, I would say the in-person attendance has probably gone down, even though it's starting to come up.
Yeah, so their average weekly attendance is down 34%, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. But their online service views, you think went up or down?
Well, again, because of COVID, and we're still kind of dealing with this, I'd say it went up. I would say I would think it would gone up online.
It went up over 200%.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah. That's quite a jump. But of course, if you're stuck, especially in 2020, and this covers, about a year. So I know a lot of churches are meeting now, but it's only been, a little while. And so you could see why, that was for many churches, the only option they had was to go online. And so that's why it went up 200%, 205%, according to his stats.
Yeah. But I think most churches have been meeting in 2021. right? So
Yeah, but this covers part of 2020 too, remember?
yeah,
So
the end of the year, very end of the
yeah,
year.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. But again, we've talked a lot about this over the last year or two about how online streaming is here to stay. And I think a lot of people like it. I mean, there are some people that say, no, I want to meet in person, and that's understandable. And you can't really replicate that per se. But I think there's still people watching, and most churches that have gone online are staying online in some form, some capacity, some form. So online service views up.
Yeah. So these are just kind of some stats that kind of give the state of the church.
Yeah.
And as you look at the stats, you can kind of derive what's going on. So, for example, the in-person attendance is down, the online views are up, and the number of people baptized is down by 50%.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at that, you go, well, in order to get baptized, I got to show up for the church. So my in-person average attendance is down. So that would kind of reflect that. Yeah. But my online service reviews, but people are not typically getting baptized online, although some churches do have the facilities to do some remote baptism kind of things as well.
Yeah, there are some churches that do that. I think as we go through these stats, I think that, the next quarter, and I think he does this like a quarterly report as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the next quarter shows, just how, if the numbers have changed at all, if they've gone up in certain areas or gone down.
Yeah. So yeah, to me, it kind of points to, and some of these other numbers, I guess we'll go to or reflect this as well, a little bit of a shallower impact that the church has had over the past 12 months, just due to the nature of the changes within the church, with a lot of online and fewer. But although there's some stats that don't line up with that as well. So, but anyway, I'm just trying to look at these numbers and kind of put my little assessment on things. The number of baptisms is down, which is really a health indicator of how effective the church is in reaching their people. So,
right. Yeah, absolutely. Now they do have new people added to the church database. And as I put my glasses on, I see that's down almost 20%, 18% is the down. Again, that would make sense, right? Given what we're going here.
Even though we got, this online service views are way up, those people aren't signing up to be members. So the people that are new people added to the database that they're following up on is gone down.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good one though here. So in spite of all of these others, that weekly attendance is down 34%, and baptisms are way down. The adults and students that are volunteering is pretty much the same.
Yeah, only down 3%.
Yeah.
I find it, in my experience of working with churches for over 4 decades, that, a lot of your volunteers, the ones that are the stalwart, the ones that are really there, they're going to be there for you. I mean, you do have people that come and go, but you have a consistent bunch of people many times that will just hang in there. I was just over at your church this past weekend. We were doing a little photo shoot because we're going to update our streamingchurch.tv website. And, I bumped into 2 guys that I worked with 30 years ago,
Right.
25 anyhow, a little more than 25 probably. And so, they're still there,
Yeah. And they're still there every Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. They're great people.
Yeah. So you're right. They're the hardcore volunteers are still there, and people committed to the church are still there. The giving is interesting here. Giving is pretty much unchanged as well. It's down 1.5%, which you see, if I lost 34% of my in-person weekly attendance, but my giving went down only by 1.5%. It kind of points to the same thing you were talking about, in that there's some committed people, that are volunteering, and they're maintaining their giving or increasing their giving.
Yeah. And of course, what probably, hopefully now every church has people have the ability, have a feature, have a tool that you can give online. And so, this again helps out because if you're watching online, you can give online, and you should, we've talked about this, we've beat this drum a lot over the years. You should always have a donate button on your website, and it should be there, very easy to see. Your online streaming should be a donate button close by, your archives, those kind of things are important. And everything you do. And I think many churches at least, have gotten on the bandwagon there, and they're actually making it easy for people to give online.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just jump through some of these other things that Tony Morgan has pointed out. One of the things and this kind of reflects I think the nature of the churches that he's interviewing, the 194 churches as well. He says 1 in 4 churches surveyed is now multi-site.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah.
Again, Tony reaches a specific group of churches. And so, as you were saying earlier, this is kind of a snapshot, but how much the average attendance, what did we say? 500 people in these churches that he surveyed.
506 people.
I know there's lots of you listening out there saying, well, my church is only 185, how does that,
or 75.
Yeah. It could be less.
The average church size, right?
So it's a little snapshot here, how scientific it is. I don't think he's claiming it to be that scientific, but as you were saying, it still is an indication of things. So yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off there, but
I was just one of the things that jumped out at me said that the 1 in 4 that are multi-site, he said this is the highest percentage of multi-site churches they've ever seen since they started collecting data. So maybe, I know multi-site was a really big trend 10 years ago
and 15 years ago. Yeah
10 or 15 years ago. So maybe it's regaining some health there, or it's working. Multi-site's working for people. Yeah,
it's a challenge to do it, as you and I both have had experience with it, but possibly so. So you want to break these down a little bit?
Yeah, here's one that had jumped out to me, and they said of the churches that have one worship style, 2 out of 3 were contemporary styles of worship, and only 6% of their churches still offer traditional services. So, and 17% offer multiple types of worship services, and that. I said, we know from previous research that declining churches are more likely to offer multiple styles of worship. It's kind of an interesting, which seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah.
On the surface, because you would think, oh, I'm going to try to reach more people, and I've got an older group and a younger group, and they like really different styles of worship. So I'm going to take care of both of them. But apparently those that are doing that are having a harder time. Their churches are declining.
Yeah, it would seem, according to the survey that he's got there. I don't know why that would be. I mean, I do know that, when you try to do too many things, many times you're not good at any of them. So I don't know whether that's something that they're doing multiple, what do we call that? Styles, and I don't know. I mean, maybe there's neither style is very good. I don't know. It's hard to say, or you're trying to do too much. I don't have an answer for that. I mean,
or it may be that you just can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah, I don't have any experience in that. I have, because every group I've been with over the years, we always did contemporary stuff.
Right. Yeah, same here, but we do have lots, we have churches that we serve that have multiple styles. So it's just an interesting.
We should survey those people.
Yeah.
Since they use our services. Yeah. Very interesting. Children's ministry in-person attendance is down 14% of overall attendance. Well, again, I still think COVID has something to do with this.
Oh yeah. It probably did. People aren't willing as much to get back out as they were.
Yeah. Here's something that that I think that honestly surprises me. And he has a section here in his report. This is the Unstuck Report. About 1 in 5 churches have discontinued a membership or partnership type of commitment. Currently, 19% of churches do not offer membership as a connection point to the church. I find that really surprising.
Yeah, it does.
I've always been big on that.
Right.
That people need to be committed. And so you need to, offer them. Now, I've always said you need to offer whatever you want to call them, classes or whatever, so people understand what they're being committed to. They understand your vision, the church's mission, those kind of things. Because I've always been, I don't know where I got this, probably Rick Warren, but I always have believed that, people need to understand and make a commitment to things. And when they make a commitment, you're better off. Everybody's better off. Now, I was part of groups many years ago that didn't do that, but I've always felt that that's the way to go. So I'm very surprised that 1 in 5 churches have discontinued membership or partnership, whatever you want to call it,
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of, maybe we're old school, or, what I envision here is the really large church that just doesn't focus on the membership. So you get a lot of, I don't know, maybe it does. One benefit is it won't create classes of people at the church, right? There won't be, I'm a member. Are you a member yet?
You're not a member. Therefore, you're lower class than I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. That is interesting. I would like to talk to some other people about that. One of these days we'll have Tony Morgan on. He's just a really busy person, and this time of the year he's on vacation, I know. So, but maybe we can get him to talk about some of this stuff, and we'll try him again. I've tried him in the past. All right. So where are we going here?
So another one here that jumped out at me: small group participation has increased through the last year.
Interesting.
The in-person attendance is down, but the small group attendance is up, which is, I don't know, that's good. It's counterintuitive to me, but it's also a sign of, I think if you do have in-person attendance that's down and your small group attendance is up, you're running a healthy ministry. I mean, the pastor may get depressed on Sunday because, like, where is everybody? But they're meeting in small groups and they're growing in small groups, and the church is thriving. So
people are craving. I believe people crave relationships, and during COVID-19 and all this stuff that's coming after it here, the online thing is great in one sense, but they don't get to connect with the people like they used to when they would show up at a service. And so small group, you get an opportunity to connect with your friends, make new friends if new people come. People crave relationships, and I think that's a really important thing. I mean, no matter who you are, extrovert or introvert, I'm an introvert and I value relationships very much.
Right. Yeah. So that's a healthy one. I mean, it hasn't jumped a lot, but relative to the other stats, it's gone up, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Another one that just jumped out at me a little bit is churches are increasingly using email to stay connected.
Yeah.
Email is kind of coming around as the primary communication form.
Yeah, we just did a podcast recently about using all you can with your digital ministry, and that's certainly very important. Yeah, absolutely. Emails are important. Newsletters, whatever you've got out there digitally can help people stay connected.
All right, and jumping into the ministry staffing and leadership section.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Staffing levels, according to this report, remain high compared to attendance declines. He's got here the average church employs one full-time equivalent staff person for every 42 people in attendance. This number includes all ministry and support staff. And he goes on to say, we know from previous research that growing churches have 35% fewer staff positions than declining churches. Interesting number. I know I've heard him say that before. Churches lean on part-time staff more than other sectors of the economy. I've heard him say this before. The average church has 47% of their staff working part-time. By comparison, the current national average remains 17% part-time workers, according to the Department of Labor. So secular groups, 17%. Church relies on 47% of their staff working part-time. I can see that. I could certainly see that.
I can see it as a healthy thing too.
Yeah.
When I was in the corporate world, and hiring, as a hiring manager, I would always opt to hire people on contract basis, so that you can check them out. You can, have them there for 6 months, and if it's not working out or it's not working great, it's easy to make the split, as opposed to having, a day of intense interviews to find out everything you know about somebody and then hiring them. This was just a lower risk way to do things, and
it gives you an easy exit ramp.
And you can hire, you can hire a lot more people, and as more affordable, and as part-times and as contract and staff, part-time people. So it's a good way to, it's a good approach that I recommend, and it looks like the church is doing it.
Absolutely. Here's something interesting. Churches have a span of care of one volunteer leader for every 11 people in attendance. So he goes on to say leaders include adults and students who are serving in roles. They are responsible for leading a team or a group of other people. So leaders and group leaders. So I think that's an interesting thing. I know we've always over the years talked about that. How many volunteers should we have compared to how many people we have actually attending? Mm-hmm. And he says they have one for every 11, which I think that makes sense. Yeah.
So you can kind of look at your attendance at your church and see how many leaders you have, and see whether you need to recruit volunteers or
get rid of some.
I don't know if you want to get rid of it. I guess consider yourself fortunate.
There you go.
You got a volunteer for every 7 people or so. Then you're doing good.
Moving on here with leadership stuff. The average church board or elder team. The average elder team or church board has 9. Count them, 9 members. The largest
9 justices.
There you go.
Oh, that's another court.
That's a different court. The largest board identified in the current reporting cycle had 106 members. Wow. I don't understand that. That's pretty big. But the average church board or elder team has 9 members. And that's, again, over the years I've been working with churches in leadership and volunteer roles. That's about what we've had over the years, about 8 or 9 people usually on a leadership team. So I don't know.
And that's is it biblical? Is it the 1-to-10 ratio, or am I reading too far? Do you know?
I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. Is it biblical?
I thought it was. I thought there was something in the Bible that referred to just some ratios of leaders to followers, and I thought it was 1-to-10. I don't know. Maybe it was an old Roman rule.
Of course, we always had the deal. Jesus had 12 disciples, and they went out, and so I don't know. It's hard to say.
Some of these numbers, for the healthy churches. If I've got, if I'm a senior pastor and I have a board of 12, then that makes sense. I've got some good ratios of leadership, and then that went down from leaders to 11 people in attendance. So that ratio just kind of worked its way down. Seems like a healthy number, 10. So
it probably is. Hopefully, if everybody's on the same page, that would be important. Of course, we've talked about that over the years. We've talked about a lot of things on this podcast over the years with leadership. Here's one that I wholeheartedly agree with. Churches generally have only a few additional boards or committees. or teams. So churches on an average have 3 additional boards or committees beyond the primary board. However, again, one church had 20, but that must be the one that had 100 people, 100 members on their board, elder board. But yeah, I have found my own experience again is when you have a lot of committees, you're just asking for a lot of log jams and a lot of bottlenecks, in my opinion. Too many committees, too many groups that are supposed to be doing things, they generally get bogged down, and that's not good. So,
all right. So the last section here is finances. Let's go through that real quick.
Sure.
So giving has decreased slightly during last year.
Yeah, we covered that. Yeah. Just slightly. Again, people that are givers, people that are behind the church usually stay there. Churches are at the top end of the financial investment we recommend for staff. Let me read that again. Churches are at the top end of the financial investment we recommend for staff. The average staff budget is 55%. Yeah, this interests me a lot. And by the way, we had some kind of we put this stuff on YouTube, and we had one of our top YouTube views for Church Solutions podcast. We're everywhere, but one of them is YouTube, was the how much should we pay our pastor? Did you see that report? There was a report that came out and said that was one of our top viewed videos. How much should we pay our pastor? Well, the average staff budget is 55% of the overall ministry budget. Now, this is what he found. This includes the cost of all salaries and benefits. We recommend, this is Tony Morgan, that churches try to keep staffing budgets between 45 and 55% of the overall budget. And so if you're thinking, hey, what should our salaries be at our church? Here's something that Tony recommends should be between 45 and 55% of your entire budget.
Right. And there's probably some good ratios that are healthy for the churches. I think of, Dave Ramsey throws out personal ratios for things that are in the healthy ranges, but this is for the staff. That's interesting. I wonder what he would recommend with regard to servicing debt for property and things like that, and ministry and others. So anyway, less than 45 to 55% is what he recommends for staff costs.
For staff salaries,
Yeah. So the churches are at the high end of that right now at 55%.
Yeah, the ones and speaking of debt, he says churches have very little debt. So on the average, the current debt load is 0.07 times the church's total annual giving. And again, the Unstuck Group encourages churches to keep their total debt below 2.0 times the annual giving. So I'm not sure I can't tell you off the top of my head what that means. Maybe you can, you're smart.
Well, I'm thinking that they want to say, I bring in, just for example, $1 million a year for my ministry. I don't want to have more than $2 million in debt.
Okay.
In total debt, buildings and other things. I think is what he's saying.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And so this is 70% of their total annual giving is tied up in debt. And then they're servicing that debt every year. I mean, that debt's usually a long-term debt. So
yeah, sounds good.
They're going to take care of. That's the way I read that.
Makes sense.
But it sounds, and I bet he's got just a fount of other little healthy ratios like that was kind of pointing to as well.
Well, you can learn more by going to the unstuckgroup.com, the unstuckgroup.com. So check that out. That's Tony Morgan's deal. And we already mentioned that most churches have at least 24 weeks in cash reserves. So I don't know, I'm trying to think the last church I was with, we had more than that, I think. But anyhow, we were lucky. All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time here. Anything else to add?
No, looks good. This was interesting stuff.
Yeah, you love stats. You love data, and I do too. I like it too.
I mean, stats kind of point to the nature. It's kind of like I went this morning and did my blood work for my annual exam, which is going to be next week, and the stats will show, the health of the individual. So these stats are always good, or the health of the church overall. Yeah. So
Yeah, I agree.
or where the church needs to work on things. So yeah, I'm into the stats, and
Right.
just it kind of shows where you need work and where you're doing good.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you listening, who are involved in leadership, I know many of you are, again, this gives you an idea. You may have a smaller church, you may have a bigger church, but it gives you an idea. And hopefully this information has been good. If you have any questions about that, send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. And if you haven't subscribed to the Church Solutions podcast, I'd encourage you to do that. We're found anywhere that you get your podcasts. So you can certainly do that as well. You can look at our YouTube channel or just go to streamingchurch.tv and go under info, and we've got our podcast there. The Church Solutions podcast is brought to you by mychurchdaily.com. Look it up, mychurchdaily.com, and get your church on Alexa devices on the flash briefing. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, Steve Lacy, for your input today.
All right, glad to participate.
All righty, good. And we're almost here. Christmas is almost here. We'll probably do one more podcast before Christmas. So if we don't catch our viewers and listeners, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas. But we'll be on next week with another podcast if we can come up with something. And we do appreciate our viewers and our listeners.
We've planned years in advance.
We do. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what they are, but we've got them. All right. So, folks, again, thank you for your time with us today. Thanks for putting up with some of our nonsense, or at least some of my nonsense. And please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast.